good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick.
You're here to talk to parliamentarians. What is your message to them on behalf of the people of Gibraltar?
Well, I think that the people of Gibraltar have been very clear in the expression of their will in the referendum. There hasn't just been one referendum in Gibraltar in the past 30 years. There's been a number of them. Also on the issue of whether we want to remain British. And our views there are even clearer than our desire to continue to participate with the European Union. And therefore, in looking at what deal the United Kingdom does, and I think there is going to be one UK negotiation, of course, and one UK deal, we mustn't see it as a binary deal. I think it's going to be a differentiated deal for different sectors of industry, for different parts of the United Kingdom. It's going to be a multifaceted deal, and one of those facets has to be the facet that applies to Gibraltar.
Let's just translate that word differentiated. Are you saying that just as Scotland is saying, well, we'd like a special deal, that Gibraltar are saying, we want our own status, whatever the rest, whatever the UK as a whole has?
What we're saying is that different parts of the rules that are today the European rules already apply in a different way to Gibraltar. So, for example, we're not part of the Common Customs Union even today. We have a hard border with Spain because we chose in 1972 not to access the market, the single market in goods. So already there's a different deal for Gibraltar. As we look at where we're going in the future, that must be the case too.
Let's just be clear what this special status would be like. You're saying, I think, aren't you, we want to have freedom of movement even if the rest of the UK does not.
That's right.
We want to be in the single market even if the rest of the UK is not.
That's right. But look at the way that freedom of movement applies in Gibraltar. So when you talk about freedom of movement in the United Kingdom post-Maastricht, you're talking about immigration and the right of establishment in the United Kingdom. Freedom of movement in Gibraltar, which is 2.5 square miles by 1 mile at the bottom of the continent of Europe, means travelling in and out on the day, because people don't tend to establish themselves in Gibraltar, but 10,000 people come from Spain every day to work in Gibraltar. That makes us the second biggest employer in Andalusia.
What do you do, though, if you can't get that special status? There may be a stark choice facing you and the people of Gibraltar. The choice may be simply this, that you have to leave the EU and leave the single market and abandon freedom of movement, whether you like it or not, however many people voted for something different in in Gibraltar, or you have to do a deal with Spain over sovereignty and give them what they've long wanted, some form of shared sovereignty. How would you choose?
Well, I don't think it's going to come to that, but if it did, to answer your question directly, it's a red, white and blue Brexit for us. We're not going to change our views on whether we remain British or not. We're going to continue to stay British, even if that seems like a very hard choice now.
Do you fear that that is a game the Spanish might try to play at the last minute? The Spanish Foreign Minister talked of planting his flag on Gibraltar. Now, some people believe that 1 minute to midnight in the negotiations, the Spanish will say, the whole deal is off unless you give us some form of sovereignty over Gibraltar.
Well, to be fair, that was the former Spanish Foreign Minister, Señor Mariano, and he didn't play that card at 1 minute to midnight. He quite openly said that Spain was going to be playing this card from the beginning of the negotiations. So I think Gibraltar has to thank him for having been so open and clear in the way that Spain was going to focus the issue under his period in the Foreign Office.
But there is a risk, you think? There's a risk that that card could be played?
Well, there is a risk that Spain could fail to be sensible in its approach, because remember that it's as much in the interests of the region around Gibraltar and Andalusia to have a Gibraltar that continues to provide jobs. Now, if they play that card, they would be doing the things that they've done before on aviation and in other areas of the European acquis applying to Gibraltar.
And just finally, have you had this conversation with Theresa May, with Boris Johnson, and are they listening? They
are listening. I've spoken to both Mrs May and Mr Johnson, and also to Robin Walker of the Department for Exiting the European Union and Sir Alan Duncan. They are listening. We're participating in the Joint Ministerial Committee on Gibraltar specifically, and I think it's going very well indeed.
Fabian Picardo, Chief Minister of Gibraltar, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.